I'm actually heading to the Bitcoin conference in Vegas this week, and then. So we're hurrying because you're attending a Bitcoin conference.
I'm actually going to the Bitcoin convention in Vegas this week.
That's
and
what you're doing? So we're rushing because you're going to a Bitcoin convention.
But the very next day, Ben's entire life would be turned upside down. His following online update wouldn't come until 43 days later, and it would be this video.
I actually just read through my wife's journal because I don't remember anything from May 28th to July 2nd.
Without any background, seeing the condition Ben is in during that video is absolutely heartbreaking. Even knowing the full story, I can't watch it all the way through without getting emotional. The fact that this video even exists is honestly nothing short of a miracle. If you're not sure what happened to Ben, or maybe you've only heard bits and pieces, let me quickly break down the timeline. Just keep in mind, not every detail has been made public, and some reports conflict. But based on what I could gather from the most reliable sources, here's what happened. Sometime in late May, Ben developed a staph infection that wasn't treated right away. While attending the crypto event in Las Vegas he mentioned on the podcast, he ended up in the hospital and things quickly went downhill. The infection had turned septic, meaning it spread into his bloodstream. This led to a dangerous and fast-moving case of pneumonia, which severely damaged his lungs and required life support while doctors tried to manage the sepsis. From there, Ben went off the radar. After about a week, he was moved to a hospital in Wisconsin, where he remained on life support. Because of the extensive damage to his lungs, the only alternative to relying permanently on oxygen and a ventilator was to get a double lung transplant. By late June, Ben was added to the transplant list. Thanks to how serious his condition was, along with his young age and overall fitness, he was considered a high-priority patient, and just about a week later, he received a successful lung transplant. While the worst part is thankfully over, the infection and the treatment left Ben physically devastated. The medical side of this story is already terrifying, but the financial reality is even more disturbing. In the U.S., a double lung transplant can cost anywhere from $300,000 to $2.5 million. And you're usually looking at the high end when your insurance refuses to cover the procedure, just like Ben's did. You might assume he's wealthy, right? But being rich and having a few $1,000,000 to spend on hospital bills are two totally different things. Here's one of Ben's closest friends, Mark Bader, sharing more about the financial situation with Flow Wrestling. Mark has known Ben for decades and was by his side at the hospital throughout the entire ordeal.
When you walk in there and see a loved one hooked up to the machine that's breathing for him, it's tough, you know? The money that this guy's made is like tied up, invested back into the sport. It's in his businesses, it's in his building, it's in the former wrestlers he's hiring. This is academy.
Breaking story, one that felt hopeless and overwhelming, finally began to see glimmers of light, thanks to all of you. Ben's wife, Amy, kept everyone updated throughout the ordeal, and the communities Ben had touched began to rally around him. From mixed martial arts to wrestling, and even the boxing world, people were showing their support from the very beginning. But once it became public that their insurance had denied coverage and the family was in urgent need of financial help, that's when the entire fight community truly came together. Social media posts about Ben's situation quickly gained huge momentum. Dana White shared a link to the fundraising campaign across his platforms, and the story was even mentioned during a UFC broadcast, urging fans to contribute. After his latest fight, Jake Paul gave Ben a shout-out in the ring and later went into more detail about how he planned to help.
I just want to take a moment to say a prayer for Ben Askren and praying for his family. He has a donation link that everyone should go donate to.
Insurance is a fucking scam, and it's so sad. Right when you need these companies, they're not there. None of these people like Dana or anyone stepping in, so I feel like I have to do something.
Circumstances were so severe, and the fight community had raised such a powerful outcry, that support for Askren began to reach the mainstream. Moist CR1 Call, a hugely popular YouTuber and streamer, made a video about the situation that reached 1.5 million views and included a link to Ben's fundraising campaign.
It's a very strong word. but unfortunately it's not strong enough to encapsulate my feelings on health insurance. And this company's entire goal, its modus operandi, its chodus operandi, is to find ways to wiggle out of doing the one thing you paid for. So I'm going to put a link to the fundraiser in the description of this video.
Ben's campaign page currently has over 1,000 comments, and although the donation amounts are private, there's no doubt that countless contributions have been made by now. Major news outlets across the country have picked up the story. The outpouring of support and awareness has been truly remarkable. There's been a lot of speculation about who donated what, but what's clear is that many people gave whatever they could, and that generosity has made all the difference for Ben and his family. Over the years, we've all poked a little fun at Ben's career, including some of his tougher moments in the UFC. But that's just sports. That's not real life. That stuff doesn't matter. What matters is this: his kids potentially growing up without a dad, his family facing the unimaginable loss of a loved one at just 40 years old. And, honestly, while I try to keep perspective, combat sports communities can be incredibly harsh and jaded. Fans are relentless, and sometimes it feels like it's a dog-eat-dog world with everyone tearing into everyone else nonstop. So when you see everyone come together, putting aside differences, focusing on supporting someone in the community, no matter how they felt about him as a fighter or even as a person, it's truly something special. It really puts things into perspective. It's a beautiful thing. This whole situation reminds me a lot of how the community came together to support Mark Coleman and his medical bills after that serious injury. And none of this incredible support has gone unnoticed by Ben now that he's awake.
The thing that was most impactful to me was all the love I felt from everybody. And it's almost like I got to have my own funeral. I still remember 30 years ago when Dave Schultz died, and you look at all these older people, recollect how much they enjoyed him, how much they loved him. And, obviously he never got to hear that. I'm sure some people will. So, man, the outpouring of love from the wrestling community was just right there. So good.
Man, the trembling in his voice. I've watched that video multiple times while preparing this, and it still hits hard. That's a man whose entire life and outlook have been changed forever, and it really reminds you just how fragile everything in our lives is. By all accounts, Ben lived an extremely healthy lifestyle and would be considered successful by any standard. Yet there he was, on the edge of death, and it happened in an instant. The only thing that could save him was a sum of money that most people, including him, would never be able to come up with. Now, his life is completely different. Lung transplants, especially, are the toughest to manage because the lungs are constantly exposed to outside air, making them more vulnerable than other organs. People with donated organs have to take immune system suppressant medication for the rest of their lives so their bodies don't reject the transplant. These drugs can cost anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 a year. Because Ben's immune system will be suppressed to protect his new lungs, he'll have to be extremely careful about infections and many other health risks, forever. He survived, yes, but his life has changed in fundamental ways. What he'll be able to do moving forward, especially with wrestling instruction, is uncertain. He may have to step back from much of what's been his life's work. But I can promise you he'll cherish every single breath he takes, no matter what the future brings. And speaking of perspective, let's not forget that a double lung transplant isn't something you just receive and then carry on like normal. It's a gift that comes after someone else's passing. Someone died so that someone else could live. I couldn't find any details about the donor, but I hope their family finds comfort in knowing their loved one literally saved a life. Okay, that got pretty heavy toward the end. There's that word again, heavy. On a much more uplifting note, I want to emphasize how incredible it was to see everyone come together to support Ben Askren in this situation. This is a moment in the combat sports community that all of you should be really proud of. Ben's journey, as I mentioned, is just beginning, and his family will need support for a long time. If you want to donate, there's a link in the description to his official fund. His family made sure donations are tax-deductible, and all the money goes directly to medical expenses, nothing else. If you've thought about donating before and decide to do so, thank you so much. Even if you just send love and support, I know they'll deeply appreciate it.
Alright, everyone.